One. Hey, what's up, Chicago? And welcome back to Talk at You Later with Miss Hip Hop, your host, and her co-host, Chris, her mother. How you doing, Mom?
I'm doing great. How about you, Star?
I'm doing excellent. It's a beautiful Friday. Can't complain.
Absolutely, absolutely. It wouldn't do any good anyway.
No, not at all. Not one bit.
Okay.
So, Jinx, no, just playing.
So, oh, that's my phone. I don't know if you guys can hear it, but I need to.
No, I can't hear it.
Okay, I'm gonna mute it. Okay, all set to go.
Okay.
So, this is our what? Is this our third podcast or our fourth podcast?
Don't jump the gun too soon. It's only the third one.
Okay, okay. So, I would like to respond to that one of your audience members DM'd you about, but I'll do that towards the end, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's cool.
Okay. So today I'd like to talk about UFO that landed at a military base some years ago in New Mexico. And this information is not coming from me, but it's coming from a former intelligence officer that was with the Air Force Office of Special Investigation. So everything that we share, that we talk about on Talk at You Later, is easily verified. So it's not something that I'm just pulling out the sky or you know, the air. It's easily verified. So this particular former intelligence officer, he investigated a UFO that landed at a military base called the Stallion Range. And it is located in the northern white sands in New Mexico. And
Hmm.
by the way, New Mexico has a lot of UFO sightings, and the residents that live in New Mexico have cited things throughout the years. Find that kind of interesting. We have family in New Mexico,
Yeah, we do.
and they've said some pretty interesting things to me in the past couple of years, but we'll talk about that at some other point. So, getting back to the Stallion Range that's located in New Mexico, it's a top secret radar facility, and it is the entrance to something called the Trinity Site, where the first atomic bomb was tested by the U.S. Army in somewhere called Los Alamos Laboratory in 1945. So that was a few years before I was born, and it contains a classified, what's the word? Classified around a laser that was used to blind passing foreign satellites. Now, this used to be classified information. It's not classified anymore because if it was still classified, I wouldn't be talking about it.
Yeah.
So everything was classified, the location, the operations, and the duties that were carried out. All of that was highly classified. But over the years, but over the years, information has been leaked out through books and lectures have taken place about the laser system that the U.S. designed to blind Soviet satellites during the Cold War era. And there were a number of detachment space surveillances. And one in particular happened on in 1964, in April of 1964. There was a police officer by the name of uh, Lon Zamora, and he worked at the Sakuro, hope I'm saying that correctly, uh, police department. And he saw a craft
Hmm.
that landed southeast of the city. So again, he's a regular police officer, just doing his regular rounds. And he saw this craft that landed, so he decided he would go and investigate it.
Wow.
And during his investigation, he saw two occupants that exited the craft, and he recorded what he saw along with some inscriptions that he saw outside of the craft. So he called it in, he radioed it in to his superiors, and they came, to where he was, and let me fast forward a little bit. There was a major follow-up that was done. The U.S. military, specifically the Air Force, they had to come anytime there's a sighting like this, and somebody's reporting it. It's going to be a big follow-up, military follow-up. And so they came to investigate to see if what he was saying was true. And over the years, I'm backtracking a little bit. This happened in 1964, but there were a few sightings that didn't get as much publicity as this one did. There was some around 1958 in New
Wow.
Mexico. Yeah, so there have been a few sightings. And so they came out, they investigated Officer Samora's findings and everything. And they just kind of, you know, put it aside, or rather, put it under lock and key. They classified it. So in 1982, fast forward, so we're going from 1958, I'm sorry, 1964, we're going to fast forward to 1982.
Oh God.
That would that would be the year you were born.
Just about.
No, no, not just about. It was. You were born in 1982. Am I?
No. I was born in 84.
Oh my God, I'm sorry. Yes. Oh my God. Forgive me.
That
Yes,
is
my baby
funny.
was born in 1984. I'm thinking of something totally different.
Yeah.
Um, so 1982, yeah, you were two. Yeah, you're right. 1984. So charge that to my head, not to my heart.
Okay.
So there were two texts. They were sent out to do some repair on equipment. This is broad daylight, and they were sent out to the Stallion radar site. Remember, I told you guys that that was where the 1960 in 1964,
In New
and
Mexico.
yes, where this craft landed. So 1982, they were sent out to repair some equipment that was on the site. And as they were there, they saw a UFO or craft, whatever, however you want to describe it. They saw it twirling around in the sky. They called it in, and their superior said, "We have a tracking on this. We can see what it is that you're calling in." But they lost it.
Wow.
They no longer could see the craft on their radar. But the two techs, they actually saw it. This is broad daylight. They saw it come in and they saw it land. And as they're standing there, the bottom of the panel of the craft, it opened up.
Wow.
And they saw two beings exited. And the technicians, they, after they were thoroughly questioned and investigated, they described them as being creatures. They were 4 feet tall. This was their words. The technicians, this was their words. They described them as creatures who were 4 feet tall. They were thin. They said they were wearing helmets. And they had a long tube connected to a tank that was attached to their backs.
Wow.
So the creatures, again, their words, they were moving their arms in several different motions as though they were trying to communicate
Wow.
with the text. If you're doing something and you're telling somebody, maybe they're across the room, you don't want to shout, and you're doing a motion with your hand for them to come to where you are.
Yeah, like waving them over.
Yes, and this is what these beings, or lack of the better words, the technicians said creatures, this is what they were doing. And so now you can imagine how they felt, right? They don't know these two beings that exit out of this craft, 4 feet tall, with this equipment on them and no verbal communication. So one of the texts started to speak to them in English, but the the ETs did not understand. So the other technician thought he would speak to them in Spanish. They still didn't understand. And so what happened after that? Again, this is 1982. Again, this is swept up under another rug. They classified this. Nothing was done with it. The information was taken from the technicians. It was classified information, and that was the end of it. Fast forward to 1999.
Oh,
There was a technician. Well, let me go back. I skipped the whole part because the whole part would be what happened to what happened after they couldn't communicate.
right.
There was, the ETs were holding something in their hands, some type of crystallized, I'm trying to remember. It was some type of crystallized thing that they were carrying. And again, the technicians, they're going to radio in this information to their superiors. The superiors automatically contacted the military. And they came in, with blazing guns, and you can imagine how they felt because they don't know what's going on.
Right.
And the military, they're highly trained professionals, and they were able to come in, and uh, they arrived. One was carrying a rifle, the other one was carrying a handgun. And when they got there, they could still, the ETs were still there. And then they started to make a motion for them to
Hmm.
come to them. And then they did a motion with their arms, inviting them to come into the craft.
What?
Yes. And so, of course, the military did not accept the offer. You put yourself in their shoes. If you're an MP, military personnel, you're highly trained, and you see these beings 4 feet tall, they're in these suits. You don't see their faces, but you can see that they're in these highly sophisticated suits that fits closely to their bodies, and they're motioning you to come into their craft. And so they were very skeptical about this. And of course, they did not accept that offer. And the beings were holding something like a cylinder. That's the word I was looking for. They were holding a cylinder like object. And the beings extended their arms for them to come and take the cylinder. They
Oh,
wanted them to take possession of the cylinder. They did not, because they didn't know if this cylinder was radioactive or if it was a weapon. They didn't know what it was. And so the they wanted the technicians to come towards the craft. And the technician thought it meant that they wanted them to walk, alongside of the craft, or whatever the technicians thought, whatever the military thought, they did not do it. And so what they ended up doing, the men from the military, as I said, they had their weapons drawn, and the beings realizing that they couldn't get anywhere with this, they dropped the container, the cylinder, on the ground, and they turned and they headed back to their craft. They got inside their craft and they left. No weapons were used. The military didn't shoot at them to try to stop them. I don't know if that was because they instinctively knew not to harm them or not to try to stop them. I don't know. The investigative report did not cover that. So, in my opinion, they made a wise decision not to harm them.
Yeah.
And so, what they left behind was this cylinder. So they couldn't just go and pick it up because, again, they didn't know if it was radioactive or not. They didn't know if they picked it up, if it was going to explode or cause some type of cancer within their bodies. They didn't know. So they had to contain this cylinder. And so, again, they had to call in more backup people that knew more about things like this than they did.
Like the
So
CIA.
they called in everybody
Wow.
because this was a top secret thing and it was protected specifically with the Air Force. And these were non-humans, non-human intelligence. And they didn't know what this cylinder was. So once they were able to contain it and get it to a laboratory to try to see what it was, once they did that, they, they still
It's-
didn't know what it was. It was so advanced.
Right.
They had never seen anything like it. They had never seen any material like this before. They couldn't they could not they didn't have the equipment to understand what this was. So eventually they end up sending it to the Los Alamos laboratory. They started to think that maybe this is a deep cover up or something, a Russian deep cover up. They thought maybe this was their craft they had designed. Maybe the ETs were not really ETs, that they were Russian ops or something planning to attack or steal something. And this is just different things that were going through the US military minds. And of course, they found out that none of this was true. It had nothing to do with the Russians. So after they were able to contain this cylinder without feeling that it was a threat to anyone, they were able to get it to the Los Lamos laboratory. And they found out, took them years to find this out, by the way.
Yeah.
They found out that this cylinder was, first of all, they found out it was not explosive, it was not a hostile device, it was not radioactive. But what they did find out was that it was some type of mini computer.
What?
And inside of this, there was a beautiful crystal. And I have read in the past, I'm going to go back to where I was, that during the Atlanteans, they had crystals still in some of the pyramids that had different, how do you say, they were used for different things. Some was used for healing the body, some was for healing the mind, some was for telepathy. These crystals, some was to be able to see in the future. These back in the Atlantean days, which we call the Atlantic City, that we know has been submerged because some things that they were doing that they should not have been doing. They
Mhm.
had too much power. They eventually became too powerful for their own good. And they basically took themselves out, not meaning to. That's another story, the Atlanteans of the Atlantic City, because they were a phenomenal civilization. But they
So
were doing things such as, I'll give you an example, they were making half human and half animals.
that's disgusting.
Well, the scientists were so advanced during that time. This was something that they were not supposed to do.
You can't play
And
God.
well, exactly. Or your creator. Some people say creator, some people say God, some people say the universe. But they were doing things they should not have been doing. So getting back to where I was talking about this crystal, and again, the crystals were found throughout the Atlantic City with the Atlanteans. So they saw that this cylinder had this beautiful crystal inside.
So what was the cylinder actually used for?
Great question. They found out there was only one way to activate this device
How is that?
through alien speaking to it. Once the ET spoke into the cylinder, it would activate it. It was a
Uh-huh.
universal translator.
Oh my God.
So when the aliens, when the ETs, extraterrestrials, when they were signaling, hand signaling for them to come to them, and they had the cylinder in their hand, they wanted them to speak into the cylinder so it would translate. They will be able to understand them, and the ETs will be able to understand the humans.
Wait, so ETs, they actually make a sound when they talk, or I thought they didn't talk. I thought it was just telepathically.
Great question. And many of them choose to talk telepathically, but they can speak with words, with voices. So there are more than one species of ETs. And I think that's where we get things crossed over, that we think there's only one,
Okay.
but they're not. There are more than one. That's like humans. There are more than
And one
one
type of human,
one
right?
type of culture,
Culture.
right? We have African Americans, we have Africans, we have,
Latina.
yeah, yeah. Haitians. I
Yep.
mean, the list goes on and on and on and on, but they're still human.
But I have so many questions because if there's so many different types of species of aliens, I feel like some of them, how can they breathe in this atmosphere where the little small aliens in 1999 came out with the suits on and the backpacks? I don't think they can endure this type of atmosphere because they had that on and the helmets.
Absolutely. Earth is a very dense um, atmosphere for them. They would prefer not to come to Earth.
Really? They just want
But
to look.
when they do, they have to have certain things to protect them from our atmosphere.
Yeah.
And the way I know that they would prefer not to, she's rest her soul now. Again, I've been reading about this and studying this for so many years. But one great resource was a lady by the name of Dolores Cannon. And all of these people that I have come across, I don't think it's been by accident. It's like I feel like I've been led. Okay, now you know this part. Now we need you to find out about this part. Now, okay, you know that. Now we need you to leapfrog over here. And so I'm finding out, I have found out there are definitely more than one species of ETs. There's so many. And some of them are here. I can't think of the author of this book. They walk amongst us. I know as soon as this podcast is over, I'll remember his name, but he wrote this book called They Walk Amongst Us. And some of them look like us. They've disguised themselves, and some of them are just come in their natural forms. And some of them, if they've been here long enough and they look like us, they can endure the atmosphere a little bit more than the ones that are just coming straight from their home planet. And so there are many, many nearby planets. Some are closer than others. And to answer the question that one of your viewers inbox you, or inbox or DM, I don't know the correct
Yeah.
name for it, DM you. Okay, so they wanted to know if I had ever um, experienced or seen an alien craft or an ET. And I thought, wow, somebody actually asked that question. My answer to that question, DM, I won't say your name, is that I have never seen a craft or ET in D. That's the dimension that we live in.
Right.
I have never seen one in D. However, when I meditate, I see them quite often and I interact with them mentally. But have I ever spoken to one like they're speaking back to me? No, it's been through mental telepathy. And again, I have never encounter one in D, and I do, for lack of better words, envy those that have in 3D.
So do I.
Yeah, but you know that feeling, listeners, star, if you ever had that feeling that something was there, you could feel it, but you couldn't see it
Oh, most definitely. All the time. Especially
all
during
the time,
meditation.
especially doing what?
Especially during meditation.
Oh, yeah, especially during meditation. And sometimes, even when you're out of meditation, you can feel something, but you can't quite, if you turn a certain way, but you can't see it. You feel like if you turn quick enough, you can catch it, but many times you can't. But a lot of times you can feel things, but you can't see things. And so we're living in a time of disclosure, meaning that the truth is time to come out. And everybody doesn't listen to podcasts. Everybody doesn't do research. Everybody doesn't experience the same things. And some people say, well, if they're here, why don't they show themselves?
They have.
They have. It's a great question. They have. And one thing I've learned from them through my meditation, if there's any skepticism in an individual or any fear, they'll pass right over you. Because, why is that? Because we were created with free will, and they will not compromise your free will
I
because it's something that the
see.
Creator gave you.
If
What's
you
that?
if you want to see, you'll see. If you don't want to see, then you won't.
Exactly. Exactly. So that skepticism will keep them at bay. But at some point in time, everyone will see, and people will still be skeptical.
Wow, Mom, I could talk about this with you all day, and I'm sure my audience would agree, but we have to go. And I just want to say thank you for doing this with me. And listeners, please like and subscribe and comment if you like what you're hearing. Hit that subscribe button right now, okay?
And share.
Yes, share.
Hit the subscribe. But can I subscribe to our podcast?
That doesn't count. Don't just
Okay.
share.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed this, and um, thank you. Thank you for having me. And the person that posed that question in your, what do you call it?
DM.
In your DM box. Thank you for that question. I appreciate it very much. And I hope I answered it for you.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you so much for everybody that has been DM me. Continue to DM me for more great enlightenment from my mother and I, okay? I love you so much, Chicago, and wherever you're listening, LA, Washington, DC, Texas, wherever you guys lay your heads at night. Talk at you later loves you, and we'll talk at you later.
And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Talk at
Yes.
you later.